Hey everybody, good welcome. It's Dr. Levi with your show, The Dr. Levi Show. So happy to have you with me today. It's beautiful here in Los Angeles. Today is February the 14th, 2018. And guess what? Yes, happy Valentine's Day. So, wherever you are, I hope you're feeling the beauty and sensualness of Valentine's Day and that you have someone to share that with. And guess what? If you don't have someone to share that with, enjoy yourself. Love yourself. Pick up some flowers or candy, sugar free candy, of course, for yourself. And just know that every day is really a gift waiting for you to express the greatest possible, magnanimous, spectacular version of yourself. When it comes to Valentine's Day, I always think about the fact that when it comes to loving someone else, it's so important that we think what I call first love. First love is really loving yourself completely. Every wrinkle, every freckle, everything about yourself. Love you because you're unique in the universe. There's only one of you. So love every part of you without comparing yourself to anyone else or anything else. Not your neighbor, your brother, your colleague at work. Simply love all of you. And I think with that internal expression of loving yourself, then we're able to reach out and love other people and love them for who they are, for what they are, and for what they have to offer. I think it's really incumbent upon us to be aware that we're not involving ourselves with people because of what they have or where we want to go. That means nothing. Those things are so temporary. You want to love the person. Literally, I always think about loving people the way they are and loving them from the inside out, meaning that you want to love the internal version, meaning are they someone who expresses a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion, a lot of goodness? Are they involved in their community versus the superficial of being just a beautiful person with a six pack or great legs, great arms, great glutes? Oh, please. All that stuff will actually pass in time. But if you have a person who's loving, who's kind, who's wonderful, hopefully they'll evolve into someone who's even more loving, more kind, more giving, and more forgiving. And that's what you really want to align yourself with. If it's simply the physicality of the body or the sex, all that may be great. But guess what? That can be very temporary. But if you love someone for who they really are, then you have a winner. So I want you to think about that. So Valentine's Day is a great day to really go into, I think, a deeper introspective thought about who we are and how do we love ourselves. And how do we love ourselves completely, just the way we are, without any modifications, without thinking about, oh, I need to go to the gym, or I need a facelift, or someone needs Botox, or a tummy tuck. Oh gosh, just love you. I think that's the way to go. Now, with that said, today we have a guest on that I think is very, very intriguing because her book, I want to give you the title of the book. The book is entitled, and I love this because it always makes me think about what food is. I've always said that it's important to love and think about food as medicine. I want to give you the name of the book, and the book is beautifully illustrated. It's entitled Return to Food, a Life-Changing Anti-Diet. I absolutely love that because that title really tells you about the author. She's really a chivalrous light in the world who's really bringing about a better understanding that when it comes to eating and diet, you want to get healthy from the inside out. Not simply the outside with respect to the things we do to make ourselves look wrinkle-free. It's really about being wrinkle-free and healthy from the inside out on a cellular level. And that's what her book is about, and that's what her diet plan is about. And also, she has a phenomenal 8-week online program that we'll talk about also with respect to really detoxifying your body of the cravings for sugar and for things that may taste good, but may not necessarily be the best thing for you. I often think when it comes to eating, we have to think about something one of my office managers said, Jessica, and that is, she said to me, we were talking less than maybe 3 or 4 months ago, she said, when it comes to eating something, she said, I'm often thinking that, how much do I want to have to work that off? And I think that's a great thought. So I always think about, I think it was Kate Moss if I'm not mistaken, but I'll have to double check this. I think she said, nothing tastes as good as fitness feels. I think it was something like that, which I thought was a really interesting statement. So with that said, I want to welcome to the show our guest, the amazing, the incomparable, the ineffable, Sherry Strong. Welcome, Sherry. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Dr. Levi. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So happy to have you on with us. And you're in Canada right now?
I am. I'm right now. I'm in a professor's office at the UBC University of British Columbia, their business school.
Yes, yes. Are you lecturing there today?
I am. I'm a guest lecturer
Well,
twice today.
that's fantastic. Well, that's really intense work, but they're so fortunate to have you there, and we're happy to have you on our show with us today. So we have so much to dive deep into today because I really want this show to be about changing the narrative about sugar. Now, people are often addicted to it, and they're not even aware of it. And I think you have so many great ideas in your book about the culprits with respect to inappropriate diets and about doing things that we can to manifest a better understanding of why we eat or why we have certain cravings.
Absolutely. So the whole piece around how we're meant to be eating is we're now living in a completely unnatural world with respect to how we're actually meant to be eating as the human species. So not only are we eating things that we could never create in nature, in a natural environment, we're also eating natural things out of the context we'd eat them in a natural environment. And it's messing us up.
Yes, yes. And I'd also like to talk about something that I've always thought is just not one of the best things for our health at all. That is high fructose corn syrup. So I'd like you to talk about that and your thoughts, and I'll share some of my thoughts about that because it's really in almost everything many people eat. And it's something that we really have to be aware of because of its artificialness as well as the effects that it has on the human body and the organs of the body.
Mm. So if you think of natural plant foods, they're like books. Some books are thicker than others, some are thinner, some have more information in them, you know. And so a living plant has literally thousands of bits of information,
Yes.
nutrients, phytochemicals. It's information. So
Yes.
what happens is when you eat that plant, your body then starts to assimilate, eliminate, and appropriate the nutrients in there. If you think about things like refined sugar and high fructose corn syrup, they're like taking a book and stripping it of all the information. So
Yes.
there's nothing on the pages, it's empty. So imagine trying to get a degree, like the students here at UBC, you're trying to get a business degree, and you've got all these books, and there's no information in there.
Exactly.
Well, it's the same thing with our food, is that if I have a natural piece of food, this is a beautiful little mandarin orange, there's thousands of bits of information, but what if I process it in
Yes.
the same way they process corn or sugar cane to end up with a pure white substance? You end up with something that's toxic and addictive to the brain.
Right.
And so I liken sugar, how we make cane juice in its natural state is not toxic or addictive. In fact, cane, the actual sugar cane, children who worked on plantations who chewed on the cane never had dental caries or diabetes. But the children who were the children of the owners of the plantation who had access to refined sugar had tons of dental caries and diabetes because in its natural state, it's not toxic or addictive. In fact, opium sap that they make heroin from, in its natural state, is not toxic or addictive, just like coca leaves that they
Yes.
make cocaine from, not toxic or addictive. But once you start to process them, removing all of that information using toxic chemicals, heat, and removing the macro micronutrients, the phytochemicals, those things that actually protect us at disease, so you end up with a pure white substance. What happens is it's toxic and addictive to the body. Heroin, cocaine, refined sugar.
Yes.
And a lot of people think, well, that's crazy that you're comparing sugar to cocaine. But it's not, because we're seeing now, we have the science to show us that the brain lights up 8 times more with refined sugar than it does with cocaine. So I'm not suggesting you go out and exchange your sugar for cocaine.
Of course not. Of
I'm
course not.
merely saying that this is how serious this substance is. And if you go to something like high fructose corn syrup, I actually refer to high fructose corn syrup as the crack cocaine of the sugar world. And the fact you can't actually make high fructose corn syrup without genetically modifying the plant. So then now you've got a book, imagine you had straight books with information, and now you've got a book like this, and the
Yes.
information's all distorted, and then you're stripping it. And what we're seeing now is with high fructose corn syrup and refined sugar, it actually turns off the brain's receptors that say stop eating. So if you were given a glass of cane juice in nature, it only takes a little bit to fill you up, and you go, wow, that's just enough, because there's tons of nutrients in it.
Yes.
Whereas you can get, the same person can have like 2 liters of a soft drink, and the brain's just not shutting off because there's no intelligence and nutrition in that. And what happens, we fill up on a volume of these foods, and it's not just sugar, it's refined anything. So sugar, oils, salts, grains, chemicals, you can refine anything to this point.
Yes.
And so what happens is we have a volume of food. It looks like we're eating a lot of food, but because it hasn't been grown properly and the nutrients have been stripped, the body's eating a volume of food, and it's saying, feed me more because I'm not getting what I need.
Right. Right. And as you say that, it really makes sense that could be really one of the leading causes of increased obesity, because here in the United States, a little over 2/3 of the adult population here are overweight or obese. And if you think about it, if you're eating food that's been denurtured, basically denutritionalized, if I can make that word up, because everything that is of value has been stripped away. And now you having so many people who are eating what I call bulk eaters. They're eating in bulk. They're eating a lot, but they may eat that much, but it only has that much nutritional content. Versus eating a small amount of nutrient-rich foods that will have a great impact on your body on a cellular level. And that's why I think it makes so much sense for us to think about having food as natural medicine, because it has those properties. And the thing about high fructose corn syrup, we already know, like refined bleached out wheat, we know there's no nutritional value to that. It may make a lot of bread, but it doesn't mean the bread is good for you, that it has any nutritional value.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, even thousands of years ago, where they didn't have refining processes.
Yes.
So if you look at the nobility, so the pharaohs in ancient Egypt, they had lifestyle diseases. And one of the reasons they had lifestyle diseases, even though their food wasn't highly processed, is because they were eating out of context of nature, because nature has inbuilt protective mechanisms against obesity. Imagine trying to source all the wheat to make a loaf of bread. Like, you get the husks of wheat, you dry it out, and then you separate each kernel from the husk, because the husk is inedible, or you create implements to do it. There's a lot of work to just make one loaf of bread.
Yes.
So, and usually if you did that, it would be a group together and you would share that. You wouldn't have a whole loaf of bread, and there would be some nutrients in it. So what happened was, when we had people preparing food en masse, so if you think about it, even wheat, it doesn't grow in nature in crops and fields. That's a man-made construct. Yeah. So wheat is much more designed for a bigger beast, like with a much bigger mandible, that just eats the husk and doesn't spit it out. So, like cows and horses.
Yes.
And imagine the muscle mass required to maintain a cow or a horse. It's large, right?
Exactly.
Whereas humans, we don't have that much to maintain. So what happened now is we started to appropriate something that was really designed for another being. So if you ever had a blade of wheat, if you've ever been out in the fields, one blade of wheat you can actually chew on, and it creates like this gummy kind of substance for an afternoon. That's one blade of wheat. So now we've taken something that would have grown with thousands of other plants that we as a species could pick and choose what was actually right for our body. And that's what we did as a kinesthetic being. We actually chose what was right for the human species. But what happened was, in scarcity and also unnatural circumstances, so like building pyramids, what they figured is if they had lots of, wheat, they could actually feed these people who had to basically work incredibly hard for very little food. So we see that now we've got this food that's grown in crops. It was never that way in nature. We've got a crop that was designed for a cow or a horse, and now smaller beings starting to eat it. And then what happened is we started to process it, remove the nutrients, the intelligence from it. And because it wasn't nourishing us, we kept feeding more. And because it was addictive and it created these kind of lows, in our body, we would eat more to compensate for that. So if you look at like the pharaohs, they had a lot of people supplying them food. So they could eat whatever they wanted. They didn't have to source it themselves because
Right.
nature has inbuilt protective mechanisms against obesity. You work off the corresponding amount of energy sourcing the food as it takes to actually break it down in your body.
Yes.
The other thing I really think that is important to point out is when I was a nutritionist in Australia, I was the Victorian Chair of Nutrition Australia, and I would go to conferences. And even senior dietitians, in fact, one of the most respected dietitians in Australia, who I have a lot of time for, was going on about obese people. And I said to her, and I won't use her name because I don't want to call her out, but I said, you have had clients over the years, and if you're anything like me, you've had just as many thin people as obese people with heart disease, diabetes, cancer,
High blood pressure.
lifestyle-related diseases.
Yes.
And she said, that's right. So you can be just as unhealthy in a thin body as in an obese body. Now, this is not giving license to obesity, but what I want to say is that there's many people who are thin who go undiagnosed because they're either thin or they're fit. And here's another piece that's really important to understand around this. I've worked with athletes over the years, elite athletes who have had cancer and debilitating diseases. And they're operating under the belief system that because they work off extraordinary amounts of energy, they can eat whatever they like. But here's the problem with that. The body actually creates fat cells to store excess toxins away from vital organs. If you have a really low body percentile fat and you're putting crap into your body, those toxins have less places to go to actually hide, and they'll actually be much more likely to attach to your vital organs. So there is no escaping for eating real food. You
Right.
can't run off a bad diet. You can't take a pill or anything like that, or exercise your way out of eating food that we're not meant to be eating as a species.
I totally agree with you. I think it's really incumbent upon everyone to really be aware of what you put in your mouth. Why are you choosing that? Are you eating because you're hungry? Are you eating because it's simply there? Or are you eating because everybody else is eating? That's why I'm such a believer, and I subscribe to it. I've been doing it for many, many, many years. Is IMF, intermittent fasting. I love the fact of eating every other day or every 2 or 3 days. I take a lot of fluids during that time, but not any solid food, because I think if we give the body less to break down, then it decreases our chances of getting any increase in free radicals in our system, as well as getting any changes, any cellular transformational changes that can be associated with cancer or leukemia or any type of lymphoma. I really love the fact that you talked about LRD, because I talk LRD, lifestyle-related diseases, because I think it's so important that people really understand what you said, and I agree that you can be thin, but thin doesn't mean fit. And you can
Or
be
healthy.
or healthy, exactly. And you can be overweight, and overweight doesn't mean that you have any increased risk necessarily of some other disease processes if you eat properly, even if you're not exercising. But if you're eating properly, then I think that your chances are still better versus if you're eating poorly and not exercising. I call that the double whammy. And then if there are any genetic issues in there, that's the triple whammy. Even though I still believe that we can change ourselves on a cellular level. I think the DNA can be rewritten, I believe, if we eat properly.
I agree. Absolutely. The thing going back to the intermittent fasting is that's a pretty natural thing. Food was not always around.
Right.
So we naturally fasted and it gave our body a break. Now, today, because we're eating unnatural foods, we're eating natural foods in unnatural amounts and ways, our bodies are really confused. And so intermittent fasting has so many benefits, not just even health benefits, but because Dr. Levi, my background's as a chef. I was a nutritionist and a chef.
Yes.
So there's like this hedonist side of me, and there's this, aesthete, this person who really wants to be good and healthy.
Absolutely.
And I like the marriage of the two. I often say I don't know about past lives or future lives, if there is such a thing, but if there is such a thing, I came to this incarnation for the food. So as much as food is medicine, as much as it's a healthy thing, and I'm really big on starting to listen to your body. I also know that there's a huge amount of pleasure that comes from food. And when you actually indulge in a pleasure in a healthy context, it can become a very rich experience. So what happens is when we have stress, we have discomfort, we then use food to deal with, to push that discomfort down and experience pleasure instead.
Yes,
Because as you know, as human beings, we're much more guided towards pleasure than away from pain.
absolutely.
So I think there is a balance of understanding that food is medicine, but food also has this beautiful pleasure. And like anything, if we use pleasure as a way of pushing down our pain, one, we're not actually totally present to how beautiful food is.
Yes.
We're using it like a drug, just like behavior, sex. People use that as a way of dealing with discomfort, and not actually being present to the act. So when you're actually present to eating food, you can actually dissect the food, savor it, slow down, enjoy the process. And when you're doing that, you're actually allowing the nutrients to absorb into your body. The more mindful that you eat,
Yes.
the more that actually brings the intelligence gets absorbed into your body.
I totally agree with you. I've always said, on one of my list of things to do, and I have a pretty long list, is I'd like to write a book entitled Food, the Free Drug. Because food really is, for many people, it's a drug. But unlike smoking cigarettes or cocaine or crack, we know these things are illegal and forbidden. But
Mm-hmm.
food, which is free, you can get it almost anywhere. And
Yeah.
I think we have to be very aware of what we eat, because our bodies only reflect what we do to them. If you eat properly, then your body reflects that. If you don't eat properly, well, your body reflects that. So I think if people really understand the power of food and the power of nutritional food and its nutritive value, I think really in general, I think like Maya Angelou would say, if people know better, they'll do better. So I think, what I love about your book and I love about your platform, your narrative is so wonderful because it's really about changing lives on a global basis. And the great thing about what you're doing, Sherry Strong, is that as you change each life, you change a generation of lives. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you can get people to eat properly and get their children to eat properly and get their children's children to eat properly, well, guess what? Your influence has been really a legacy building of nutritional health and well-being.
Well, that sounds beautiful.
Well, it's you.
I'm
You're a
in.
beautiful person, inside and out, because, your platform is not an easy one for many
Mm.
people to digest, because so many are really truly addicted to food, addicted to sugar. And what I
Mm.
really call, again, there's another thing I keep saying I like to write about, is this addiction to a lack of discipline. When it comes to eating
Mm.
properly, you have to really have a certain amount of discernment within yourself and a certain amount of discipline, saying, okay, the candy is there, the alcohol is there, the cigarette is there, the gym is over here. Let me go to the gym and not do the cigarette, the candy, the sugar, or the mayonnaise, or the soda. Because we already know, of course, you drink one soda a day. I think it was from University of Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. One soda a day, you'll gain 16 pounds per year. That's just one soda a day. How many people drink 2 or 4
Mm.
sugar-rich beverages every day? Think about that, Sherry.
Well, I think that obviously weight is an indicator. It's a way of proclaiming to the world, I'm taking more of my share
Yes,
than what I would be able to source in nature.
right.
And there's a lot of political correctness around obesity, but in a sense, there's a reason why we're all triggered by it. And I'm a big believer in bringing it right back to nature. So what did obesity tell us? It meant you're actually consuming way more than your share on the planet. And more than the actual weight gain, that's a problem, is when people are having a soft drink a day, it's flooding their brain, it's weakening their immune system. Okay, so now here's the thing with sugar. there's over 146 chronic diseases or conditions associated with sugar consumption. So when you're having that bit of sugar each day, and particularly refined sugar, and then all the chemicals with it, you're weakening your gut, your immune system, you're opening yourself up to disease.
Yes.
We know that sugar is directly related to heart disease, and the sugar industry covered that up for many decades. Right. And now we're learning that sugar is responsible for Alzheimer's. So they're now calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
Yes.
So there's not a part of our body that isn't impacted on it. And obesity, it shows up physically. Some people can run it off, or some people just their actual system, burns it in a way that they can't show it. So I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about us always harping on the obese people.
Yes.
When there are just as many thin people who are vulnerable to disease. And obviously, I'm also a bit sensitive to that, Dr. Levi, because I've been twice my size, right?
Yes.
As you know, I wasn't 10'4". I haven't had a massive height reduction.
Right.
But I was that person who used to start off the morning with half a liter of ice cream and didn't stop eating sugar until I finished the day. And besides the chronic conditions, and I know I was pre-diabetic and I had issues, many different health issues. To me, the biggest thief that sugar is, bigger than your physical health, is your mental health.
Yes.
And its connection to depression. And what I say when I'm working with clients, if you have any kind of chronic disease or condition or depression, and you're still eating refined sugar, you're contributing to that problem. There's just no way about it. And if you want to reverse it, if you want to feel better, if you want to regain your health, it's the first thing you need to get out is the white stuff. And that's white sugar, white flour, white oils, white salts, and any chemicals.
I totally agree with you. One thing I'll share with you that I've never talked about, but I'll talk about it today, is that, for many, many, many years, I suffered from celiac disease. Mm-hmm. And it was really, really tough. I mean, really, mm-hmm. really tough. And finally, through my own research, and taking out sugar, and of course taking out wheat and gluten, it all resolved without any problem. I also had some eczematous type rashes on my elbows, on my arms, the back of my neck, on my face also. All of that went away when I really was focused and disciplined about not only eating well that day, but eating well as a lifestyle. And not thinking about a diet, but thinking about a nutritional lifestyle plan that will work for me and that I could do every day and do it unapologetically. To go out to dinner with a friend and let her know, you can have that, but I'm not going to have that, and not apologize for it. Or to go to a dinner party or any party and just say, I'm only going to eat properly, without thinking, they'll think he's a food snob or he's a this. That's not my business what people think. So I think if we all take responsibility for ourselves, for our bodies, for what we eat, and understanding the value of eating properly. There's great value in being healthy, because I think of health, our health is really, Sherry Strong, I believe, our first gift. I think it's the first package that we unwrap. And I think if we're able to really live in the present and keep our health, then that's starting off as a very good day. Yeah.
It is our genetic inheritance. And one of the biggest things that we learned in the natural world that we're no longer taught, and in fact, we're discouraged from listening to our bodies. So this is it's a big problem, because the foods that were addictive in nature were really hard to obtain. So I teach something called nature's principle. And nature tells us what to eat, in the quantities to eat it, and by how easily it's obtained in nature and when it's available in nature. So that which is most abundant, we're meant to eat most of. Harder to obtain, we're meant to eat less of it. Nature gives us stronger physiological desires, so we work harder for it. And if you cannot get it in nature, not only do we not need it, it's harmful to the body and the planet. And it's this third area of stuff that is not available in nature, that we processed, that we could never have created in a natural environment that most of us are eating. And here's the other thing. It's the most addictive stuff on the planet. But what happens is we might actually have a bad sensation or feeling, like when you had wheat. Maybe it didn't actually impact immediately when it went down your tummy initially. And it took a while to actually happen. So sometimes we don't associate what we're eating with the pain. And we will argue for our limitations. We will argue for our addictive substances. And I know very intelligent people who won't even try to remove something from their diet because they're so addicted to it. And you can find science that will substantiate almost any dietary belief you have. So I have a friend right now, dear friend of mine, who eats way too much meat and has all kinds of health problems, but refuses to associate it. These are things that are definitely associated with meat consumption. So bursitis, gout, heart issues, okay, that's 3. Yes. But he just won't listen to anything that would say, maybe you're having too much meat, like having lots of meat at every single meal, might not be good for you. But he uses his intelligence to counteract the arguments that his body's actually making.
Yes.
And we can justify anything. But when you start to really listen to your body, it will communicate to you. It will communicate in ways of acne,
yes, exactly.
heartburn, hemorrhoids,
right, indigestion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, there's always a way that your body's really trying to communicate to you. And it's little things, like even you can actually experience an intolerance in the respect of if you have a meal and then you constantly something's repeating on you, you're burping it up and you can taste this flavor.
Right.
That's usually the thing that your body's saying don't eat. Now, it could be something like strawberries, or it could be, green peppers. And it's not necessarily a green pepper or strawberry or banana, as is the case with me, but it can be how that piece of vegetation is grown.
Yes.
So in Return to Food, I talk about the crazy banana story. And, there are people who are in the health movement who are eating, in cold climates, outrageous, unnatural amounts of bananas. And the bananas have actually been treated. The standard practices in the banana industry will literally make the hair on the back of your head stand up, or maybe it would make your hair grow and stand up.
Right.
Dr. Levi. Okay.
I love that.
Grow faster. But one of the things that, if I can just indulge and tell this story about the crazy banana story. When I first started my cooking school in 1993 in Melbourne, Australia, I had groceries delivered to me from an organic grocer. And up until that time, I thought I was allergic to bananas because every time I'd have a banana, I get this kind of nauseous feeling or cramping feeling and sometimes heartburn. And I thought, isn't that weird? I must be allergic to bananas. So one day I got this fruit and veg order in, and there were these biodynamic bananas in there, and they just kinesthetically, my body was drawn to have them. And I ate the first banana, it was biodynamic, and I thought, oh my goodness, that is so incredibly delicious. I don't care what kind of pain I'm going to feel. I'm going to have a second one.
Right.
And I had no pain. And I thought, this is amazing. I'm over my banana allergy. And then a few weeks later, I went to a conference and there were bananas there and I had a banana. And I quickly had all those symptoms come back. And I thought, okay, so I can have the biodynamic ones, but I can't have the conventional ones. Fair enough. And a few years later, I came across this amazing study that was done at the Copenhagen Zoo, where the zookeeper had noticed the chimpanzees always peeled their bananas and ate them. And one day he got an organic shipment of bananas in, and the chimpanzees ate the bananas whole. And he thought, this is interesting. So he decided to do a little study. And he got conventional bananas and put them in one corner, and he got organic bananas and put them in another corner. They went straight to the organic bananas, ate them whole, and it was only once they were finished, they went over to the conventional ones, peeled them, and ate them.
Very
and
intriguing.
I thought,
That's very intriguing.
Isn't this fascinating? So a few years later, I was at the Northey Street Farmers Market in Queensland, and I saw a biodynamic banana grower, and I was asking him, I said, do you have many people who have these symptoms? And I started to explain the symptoms that I had. And he said, yes. He said, most of my customers come to me because they have all kinds of reactions. He said, in fact, the young fellow working for me used to actually bring up blood when he'd have a conventional banana. And now he can eat 5 or 6 a day and he has no problem. And literally as he's doing this, the guy has a banana in his mouth and he's going, yep, that's true.
Wow.
And he said to me, would you like to know why this is the case? And of course, I was fascinated. He had my full attention. And he said, I used to grow bananas conventionally. And he started to explain all the different practices that they use, including using all kinds of chemicals, in the process. And when you spray a chemical onto a plant, it doesn't just halo on it, and then you can wash it off. It's porous, it absorbs. It
Absolutely.
trickles down into the root system. The root system, when it rains, brings up the toxins as it's bringing up the water.
Yes.
But the worst practice that he showed me that I was just dumbfounded that this could actually be legal, or even that intelligent humans would do this. They would take the same poison that they use to kill white ants or termites. They put it in a syringe, and they would physically inject that poison into the stalk of the banana. You
In the
see, Dr.
stalk of
Levi,
the
I was never
in the
allergic to
stalk?
bananas.
You said in the stalk of the banana?
In the stalk of the banana, so it would
Wow.
actually go through the entire,
So it goes through the
front
body
of.
of the plant.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Of the fruit. Yeah. So you couldn't help. Yeah. Yeah. So I was never allergic to bananas. I was allergic to what they did to the bananas,
Yes.
as evidenced by the fact that I could eat biodynamic bananas, which is better than organic, without any problems. But whenever I have a conventional banana, even to this day, if someone puts an organic banana, even here in Canada, in a smoothie, I get the reaction. And it's because even if they're grown organically, in order to get them from tropical countries to countries like Canada, they have to spray them and dip them in solutions to prevent funguses, and that eventually ends up impacting the banana. And banana is just one of them. There's nothing in our food system that isn't untouched. And it's why we have to really re-educate ourselves. We have to start to listen to our bodies, because it is actually way better than any, machine out there or a
Yes.
dietitian or nutritionist that you come along. Your body's always communicating to you. And if you get still, you start to clean it out and eat real food, you will start to get an accurate understanding and connecting. Because when a poison enters your body, you think about the television show CSI, and they
Yes.
show the computer generated graphics. They show when a bullet enters the body, all the kind of ripple effect that happens. They
Right.
show when a poison happens, how it actually enters into the cells. When a poison enters your body actually knows it. But we're so disconnected from our bodies. We're just like, intelligence, science,
Yep.
information. This is
Yep.
the most important thing, that we've forgotten that we're actually a mammal, and we know what the offending thing is. Kinesthetically, the work of Dr. David Hawkins, who wrote Power versus Force, The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior, showed us that even before we touch something, right? If it's just sitting out there, we can tell the difference kinesthetically by
Absolutely.
strength testing, whether it's the organic one or the conventional one,
Right.
even before we touch it, right? So
Absolutely.
when we get back to that, we start to listen to our body, we start to understand and make strong choices for a strong life. Things start to shift in ways that just show up magically. And I can tell you're the kind of person who gets this. You live like you radiate energy and, and vitality. And
Thank
it's
you.
almost, I think, probably impossible for you not to be as dynamic as you are.
What my goal really is to bring about a really greater and better understanding, I guess, on a global platform, that we are what we eat, drink, and smoke. That's really what I
Mm-hmm.
just want to tell people. That's the bottom line. You can't be more than what you put in your body, really. Because it's like injecting your body and infusing it with good stuff or
Mm,
something that's not so good. So
yeah.
I just want us to be aware of the choices that we make. Because with every choice, as my mother would say, with every choice, Levi, that you make, there are always consequences. So she'd always say,
Yeah.
beware, son, of what you choose, because there are consequences involved. So I think food, the same way. If you choose, you have a choice of organic versus non organic, well, maybe if you can, spend a little more for the organic, which may be more, but maybe buy less, and then you'll eat less. Because there's
Mm-hmm.
really, if you think about it, there's really no win-win for eating more of anything. If you really think about it, do we really need 3 meals a day or 4 meals a day? I don't think so. I think 1 meal a day or 1 meal every day or every other day or every 2 days, I think it's more than enough to sustain a human body. And as you said earlier, and you alluded to this, and I absolutely agree, and that is, in the caveman times, for example, you eat what you kill. So if it's a day when you can't get out to hunt and you can't bring something back in to eat, well, that day you don't eat. You might drink some water and then you just lay your pallet down and you go back to your cave and sleep. Get up the next day and try again. So I mean, I think it's really clear that the human body was not really designed to eat every day, and definitely not 3 times a day. I've never seen any, at least in my mind, physiologically, why that's even necessary.
The other point I want to add to that is that all hunter-gatherers ate 11 to 15 plant species to every animal species. So on the days where there wasn't an animal hunted, they had all kinds of highly nourishing plant species. So with tons rich of phytochemicals, the color, aroma, and flavor compounds that protect us against disease.
Exactly.
And the other piece is that they didn't always kill a big mammoth, right?
Exactly.
Those are the pictures we see, but they ate in a hierarchy of what was available. Right. So from insects to rodents to, birds to they
fish.
ate, fish. There was like this hierarchy of what was most easily obtained.
Right.
So that's another big piece. But probably one of the other things, and I know you do this because I know how I get a sense of how you think. One of the things I cover in Return to Food and with Sweet Freedom, helping people get off of sugar, is what you ingest mentally, emotionally, and spiritually is as important as what you ingest physically. And so we get people working on the mental, emotional, spiritual side of things, removing toxicity in each of those quadrants,
yes,
as well as the physical, and starting to nourish in each of those quadrants, because this is the mental, emotional, spiritual. This is the stuff that drives our behavior. The eating and the drinking and the movement, that is the outer stuff. But it's usually driven by how we think and feel, and how we nourish our spirit.
Yes.
So when I can get people to remove toxicity in those areas, help them to do it themselves. I don't do it. They do the work.
Right.
But when we can actually get them to remove the toxicity and start to nourish in those other areas, making changes in the physical becomes so much more easy and natural. And that's the problem with the whole diet industry, and why, Return to Food is the life-changing anti-diet, is because the diet industry is working on this bit. And
yes.
Here's the advantage of working on this bit. It's much easier.
Correct.
Don't eat this, eat that,
right.
and move, right? That's what the diet industry says. But the thing that perpetuates the diet industry is they don't work on this part because it's harder. There's a lot more work in doing it. It's a much more difficult sell.
Yes.
People I just want the diet. I don't have to think about it. And, it's like saying, I just want to go to counseling, but I don't want to talk about my problems.
Right. Right.
Right. I just want to heal my relationship, but I don't want to do that work stuff.
Exactly.
Right. Let's just go out for dinner on Valentines Day, and all that stuff that we've been doing to each other. We'll just forget about it. Right. So, the other piece too is that if you don't deal with the drivers, the underlying drivers of our behaviors, it's great because they just keep coming back for the diet, the easy fix. And as long as we keep coming back for the easy fix, we're going to have the problem because we never addressed the actual origin of the reason why we're eating foods that we know are not good for us.
I agree, because I think if you address the issues there, then we can make this paradigmatic shift to do something different. But if we're not aware of it, we don't have the knowledge, then how can you have the conscious change if you just don't know any better? But if we know better, then we can truly do much better. And I really want to talk about your 8-week program. And I want to also, what is the website where people can reach you and reach out to you? And how can they subscribe to become a member of your tribe, and also to actually buy your program? Because I think the program is such a worthwhile nutritional value, and I think it's an investment in self. I think for someone to buy the book, Return to Food, is an investment in themselves, in their lives, and in their lifestyles.
So thank you so much. Really
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. So Return to Food is just ran out of its first print run. So we're in the process of editing it. So we're revising it and updating it. So that will become available by the end of spring. But in the meantime, the best way to reach us and get on board and get tons of free resources is to go to sweetfreedom.ca. So sweet as in sweets, we love them. Freedom as we all want to be free. And .ca as in Canada. We couldn't get the .com. And so from there that we have the 7-day Eat Less Sugar Challenge, which for those people who just the thought of giving up sugar feels impossible, if they know they have a problem, and they just want to make some headway, and they just want to stop feeling terrible and miserable, we have a 7-day challenge that not only helps you eat less sugar, but it upgrades the types of sugars that you're eating. So
Absolutely.
the types of sugar you're eating actually have intelligence in them, and will nourish you instead of strip nutrients from your body. And then for those people who realize they actually know that sugar is a drug and that it requires a strategy, not a diet, and they really want to get strategic about dealing with their issue around sugar, which is the gateway drug for all the other drugs, food drugs, that I call the lethal recipe.
Yeah.
We do have an 8-week online program, and we don't have you give up sugar until week 4. We get you nourished mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and we start to set up your life so that it supports you getting off of sugar. And the testimonials, the people that are going through the program, they're like blowing me away at they're constantly saying, "Oh, thank you, Sherry Strong, thank you, Sweet Freedom," and I just throw it right back on them and say, I provide the tools, but the kudos goes to you because you're the one doing the work. Right?
Absolutely.
I say
Absolutely.
if I could come and cook for you, I would. But I can't. You're doing the work.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you this. I think with people having a greater understanding that sugar, does everything from decrease your immune system to increase your risk for certain lifestyle-related diseases, I think if they have the knowledge, then they'll do something different. I think it's
Yeah.
simply having the knowledge. And that's what I love about your book. I totally endorse your book with 2 thumbs up. I give you 3 if I had 3 thumbs because I think it's just fantastic. And I applaud your courage to talk about it because the sugar industry is such a very powerful institute here in America and really globally with
Yeah.
respect to allowing individuals to, like the smoking industry did, to become addicted to a substance that their internal research has already shown that is not the best thing for the human body. It's like smoking. We knew this for decades before the Surgeon General put it on the package that smoking is bad for you. So I think what you're doing is very brave, courageous. I think it's very enlightening. And the wonderful thing is that it really gives us an opportunity to make a generational change that can start now to make things better for many other people.
Well, I think that's why we're here. It's one of the pieces that I teach in Sweet Freedom is that when you get connected to a purpose bigger than you and you
Yes.
actually act and behave in the way of service,
Yes.
your addictions, are much more less likely to take hold. That often for most of us, that George Bernard Shaw quote, most men are living lives of quiet
Quite
desperation. Our
desperation.
quiet desperation of eating food that's not nourishing and addictive and sitting on the couch, taking in stimulus that's
Yes.
not nourishing and is addictive is just symptomatic of us not actually stepping into that place of service and having purpose and meaning in our life. So, trust me, Dr. Levi, I came from mental, emotional, and spiritual and physical poverty. And
Yes.
if I can do it, I promise you, anyone can do it.
I,
I've
I,
had,
I just appreciate your honesty, your authenticness, and your really ability to articulate a message that can be thought of as being very complicated, where you break it down so beautifully and easily that it's digestible. And I think people can take your message and actually not only hear it, but actually apply it to their lives to become healthy, to live healthy, and then to live a life of service with that healthy body. Now, how can they reach you, Sherry? Because we have about 30 seconds.
okay, well, it's sweetfreedom.ca. We have over 50 recipes and blog posts and connections to our YouTube channel where we have tons more of recipes and resources and videos to help you get Sweet Freedom.
Fantastic. And the website, once again?
Sweetfreedom.ca.
Fantastic. Well, you're just a light in the world. We're grateful to have you. And I'm in your tribe, I can tell you that. And I endorse Sweet Freedom. 2 thumbs up. You really are amazing. So thank you, Sherry, for joining us. I want to thank everyone for being a part of the show. Our show is really about letting you feel good about yourself, giving you information. Our show is about information. Our show is about information, inspiration, and empowerment. And I hope you got at least one of those today. This is Dr. Levi. Have a great Valentine's Day. Hope you have someone to love on. And if not, love on yourself because you take you wherever you go. Have a great day. Bye.